On Tuesday, Polish President Andrzej Duda met US lawmakers at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Duda held photo ops with Senate Majority and Minority leaders Charles Schumer and Mitch McConnell. Later, he met House Speaker Mike Johnson and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. President Biden is also set to meet Duda and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk to show solidarity for Ukraine in its battle against the Russian invaders and to discuss ways to increase funding for NATO against a continuing threat from Moscow. The White House meeting between Biden and Polish President Andrzej Duda and Prime Minister Donald Tusk comes as Biden presses to overcome Republican hardliners in Congress who are stalling a $95 billion funding for Ukraine weaponry and aid to Israel. United States President Joe Biden said on Monday that there was no need for additional American troops at the Polish border, with his remarks coming a day before he meets Poland's President Andrzej Duda and Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
There's no need for more troops at there's no need for more troops at the Polish border. But I'm meeting with the Prime. I'm meeting with the Polish leader tomorrow.
Do you know what you might talk about with him tomorrow?
Yeah, but I'll talk to him about it. Okay.
Poland's president will propose during a visit to the United States that NATO members spend 3% of gross domestic product on defence, he said during a meeting of Poland's National Security Council. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 has made defence a top priority for members of NATO's eastern flank, and Poland is spending around 4% of GDP on boosting its armed forces this year. He said that NATO's response to Russia following the outbreak of war in Ukraine must be clear and bold. And now let's hear from our special correspondent, Alexander Wierzejewski, who is currently in Washington, D.C.
President Andrzej Duda is visiting Washington today. His first meetings were in the U.S. Capitol with representatives of Senate and the Congress. As President Duda mentioned, all these meetings, these conversations were in very friendly manner, in true spirit of true alliance. Next, President will meet President Joe Biden, and Donald Tusk, Polish Prime Minister, will also be part of this meeting, of this conversation. The significance of this visit is there are at least two issues. The first is strengthening the Polish place in NATO. In 25th anniversary of joining the NATO, the Poland 25 years ago was just recovering from the 50 years of communism and from being part of the Warsaw Pact. Joining the NATO was possible by Polish political actions and also very active Polish Americans who pressed their representatives to allow Poland to include it to the NATO, which significantly changed the security of Poland and prospect of the future development. Another topic, another important issues discussed today will be the new coalition and its intentions towards rearming Poland and transatlantic policy and transatlantic ties. And probably Donald Tusk we have to answer the questions regarding his intentions towards further rearming Poland and further cooperation with American economy. As Newsmax TV stated, Joe Biden wants to straighten up Donald Tusk. Aleksander Wierzejewski, Poland Daily, Washington.
Lufthansa's cabin crew union has called its members to strike at Lufthansa and short-haul carrier CityLine on Tuesday and Wednesday to press their demands for higher pay, seeking a 15% wage increase. The UFO Union of Flight Attendants said on Saturday that the strike, which was voted for by members, would affect departures from Frankfurt Airport on Tuesday and departures from Munich on Wednesday. I'm from Frankfurt, Sachsenhausen district, and I'd like to fly to Palma de Mallorca. I'm lucky that we were able to fly today to start our vacation. Many others are less lucky, and it's starting to become annoying. Well, there is nothing I can do about it, right? As a customer, I can't do anything. Someone drove me here, but I wanted to take the train, also affected by the strike, and then fly. I had to rebook my flight to Miami from Lufthansa to Swiss via Zurich, but the whole thing was very annoying. Exactly. Last year's results show that if we work together, if we fly, we are able to make these record profits. Last year shows this. That's why strikes are the wrong path. Strikes burn money. Let's return to the negotiating table to find solutions to once again make profit together. We are ready to return to the negotiating table once there is an offer which is right. The last offer on the table was simply not enough. After this period of coronavirus and high inflation, we need a real wage increase. And with the current offer, we would actually suffer a wage decrease. We can't accept that. Lufthansa said about 120,000 passengers would likely be affected. The airline group warned on Thursday its operating losses in the first quarter will widen and gave a subdued outlook for 2024 as it struggles with costly labour disputes, offsetting a travel boom. Europe's airlines have benefited from unprecedented demand since the pandemic, allowing them to raise prices, but higher labour and maintenance costs have limited earnings growth. Lufthansa in particular has agreed to new higher pay deals to end strikes, which analysts and investors say threaten its 2024 operating margin target. Last Thursday, Lufthansa ground staff walked out. United States intelligence agencies said on Monday that the country faces an increasingly fragile world order, strained by great power competition, transnational challenges, and regional conflicts, in a report released as agency leaders testified in Congress.
Today, the United States faces an increasingly complex and interconnected threat, as has been noted by the chairman and vice chairman, environment characterized by really three categories of challenges. The first is an accelerating strategic competition with major authoritarian powers that are actively working to undermine the rules-based order and the open international system the United States and our partners rely on for trade, commerce, the free flow of information, and accountability to the truth. The second category is a set of more intense and unpredictable transnational challenges, such as climate change, corruption, narcotics trafficking, health security, terrorism, and cybercrime that often interact with traditional state-based political, economic, and security challenges. And the third category is regional and localized conflicts that have far-reaching and at times cascading implications, not only for neighboring countries, but also for the world.
Sustaining that support for Ukraine not only doesn't come at the expense of deterring China, it actually helps to deter China, whether it's in Taiwan or the South China Sea or other places. It is our assessment that Xi Jinping was sobered, by what happened, especially in the first year of the war. He didn't expect that Ukraine would resist with the courage and tenacity that the Ukrainians demonstrated. He didn't expect that the United States, whom he believes is a declining power, would step up in the way the president has led, with all of your support, to show solidarity with Ukraine as well. That's had an impact, I believe, far beyond Ukraine or European security, and that's really what's at stake today.
All routes must be used to get aid into Gaza and ward off a humanitarian catastrophe, European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Tuesday in the European Parliament in Strasbourg, France, as a ship transporting food left Larnaca headed to the enclave. Von der Leyen visited the port in EU member state Cyprus on Friday and told lawmakers in the European Parliament that an EU team would help coordinate and finance the flow of aid through the maritime corridor once it was up and running, as the United Nations warns of widespread famine among Gaza's 2.3 million Palestinians 5 months into the war.
As we speak, a ship is setting sail from Cyprus to northern Gaza. It carries the most basic kind of humanitarian aid, which is almost the most needed today, food, plain and simply food for a population that faces a humanitarian catastrophe. The situation on the ground is more dramatic than ever, and it has reached a tipping point. We have all seen the reports of children dying of starvation. This cannot be, and we must do all in our power to stop it. Everybody knows how difficult it is to move aid into and within Gaza. All routes have to be used to reach people in need. And this is where the maritime corridor comes into play. It can crucially help increase the amount of aid effectively reaching people in northern Gaza. The United States will now work to set up a floating port to unload big ships, Till this is ready, we work with smaller ships. The United Arab Emirates and other partners will co-finance the cargo. Cyprus will manage the departure at the port of Larnaca. And we, the European Union, will step up our logistics support on the ground. An EU coordination team is already in Cyprus, and we will finance and coordinate the flow of European goods through this corridor. In parallel, several countries, including some of our member states, have started to airdrop humanitarian aid from Jordan into Gaza. And today I can announce that we have activated the EU Civil Protection Mechanism to strengthen our support. And I encourage all member states to contribute with their assets, from parachutes to containers, to allow a stable and meaningful supply of aid to Gaza.
If successful, the mission, which could take up to 2 days and is mostly funded by the United Arab Emirates, would signify the first easing of an Israeli naval blockade imposed on Gaza in 2007 after Hamas took control of the Palestinian enclave. In the same debate to lawmakers, von der Leyen also announced the Commission would recommend the European Council start accession negotiations with Bosnia and Herzegovina.